When I was 13, my family took me camping deep in the mountains. The first night, we sat around the fire laughing. The next morning, I woke up alone in the tent. No footprints, no notes, no gear. Just gone. I walked for days until a ranger found me. They contacted my parents. When he picked up, he said, "Wrong number." Then he paused. "Tell him to forget we ever existed." And he hung up. After that, I stopped being part of any family. 10 years later, I did something that tore their world apart. A week ago, I got a letter from a lawyer. Yesterday, I woke up to 63 missed calls. My sister sent voice notes like, "What the fuck did you do?" Dad's vomiting. He can't even stand. He read the letter and collapsed. I was 13. My family, mom, dad, younger sis, Sophie, decided to go on a camping trip way out in the mountains. Like not your basic state park. I mean, we had to drive for what felt like forever on these rough, busted up roads. And the last few miles were just rocks and trees. No cell signal, not even the radio worked. We'd gone camping before, but never this far out. I remember it felt a bit off from the very start. For like, my dad kept glancing at the rearview mirror more than usual. And my mom was fidgety, constantly checking and rechecking the bags in the trunk. She snapped at me for forgetting my earbuds, then acted like nothing happened, which wasn't really her usual style. Normally she'd keep at it, or at least give me one of her looks. Sophie was mostly absorbed in her phone until we lost service. Then she just looked out the window and picked at her fingernail. There wasn't any big fight or overt drama. It was just quiet. Not the cool, relaxed family trip quiet, but more like everyone was preoccupied with something else. I kept getting this persistent feeling that I was missing some kind of inside joke. We got to the campground late in the afternoon, unloaded the tent and some of the gear. We were supposed to help, but Dad did most of it himself. He barely spoke. I remember he started setting up the tent before we even found the designated fire pit, which was unusual because he's the type to have a whole meticulous plan written out for everything. That night, we were gathered around the fire and it was honestly nice. For a little while, we were roasting marshmallows. Well, Dad was mostly burning them, and Sophie kept tossing pine needles onto the flames, making them pop and crack. Then Dad said something like, "It's good to have a fresh start. Maybe we'll all feel better tomorrow." I just kind of shrugged. Mom didn't say anything at all, just stared intently into the fire. I went to sleep that night thinking this trip was probably about some family issue they weren't openly talking about. Like maybe it was about my grades, or Dad's ongoing disagreements with his brother, my Uncle Marcus. I woke up. The tent was zipped up. The sun was up and it was cold. I reached for my backpack and it wasn't there. At first I thought maybe Sophie had pulled a prank on me. She's done it before. But then I realized her stuff was gone too. I got out of the tent and there was just nothing. No chairs, no cooler, no bags, no. Even the snack wrappers from the night before were gone. It was like someone had meticulously cleaned up after a party. You ever get that feeling? Like your stomach just suddenly unclenches all at once? Like, oh, this is bad. This isn't just a joke. I started yelling their names. Walked in circles around the clearing. Checked behind trees. Looked for tire tracks or literally any sign that they'd just gone to get water or something. Nothing. No notes, no footprints. Except my own. My phone was dead. ID left my charger in the car. I guess the next few hours, I just kept expecting them to come out of the woods or yell, surprise, or whatever. I sat there and waited. For real, like an idiot. I was mad. But also there was this nagging thought that maybe ID done something and they decided to teach me a lesson. I don't know. Eventually, I got hungry. And then thirsty. Like really thirsty. There was a creek fairly close by, so I drank some water from it, which was probably a dumb idea, but I didn't know what else to do. It got dark. No one came back. I slept in the tent again, but it was freeze. I couldn't really sleep. The next morning, still nothing. Now I was just seriously angry. Like if this was supposed to be some kind of test or something, they would have come back by now, right? I started yelling again. My voice got hoarse. I started to get scared. But mostly I was just incredibly ticked off. I kicked the tent pole so hard it bent. I tried to remember which direction the car had come from. I picked one and just started walking. All I had were the clothes I was wearing and a broken flashlight. Not even work. Thanks, Dad. I spent the next day and a half walking. I'm pretty sure I was going the wrong way most of the time. I heard some animal noises. Got scratched up pretty bad on thorns. I literally fell once and skinned my arm. It was a nasty scrape. I probably should have been more scared of bears or whatever, but mostly I was just running through all the possible reasons they would do this. Like, what did I possibly do? Why leave me? Why now? By the third day, I was getting a bit disoriented. I kept hearing Sophie laughing, like from behind a tree, but it was just birds or the wind or whatever. Eventually, I saw this ranger in a truck and nearly collapsed from relief. He gave me some water, asked me a million questions like, "Where's your family? Why are you out here all alone? Do you know your home address?" I try not to sound like a complete psycho, but I was just like, they left. I guess they just left. He took me to this small ranger station, gave me some crackers and a sports drink. I still remember it was bright blue, and I almost chugged the whole thing. He was flipping through a phone book. Yeah, an actual physical phone book. Tried to call my parents. I heard him talking to my dad. He said, "I've got a kid here named Liam. Says you're his father. You can come pick him up." Then he went quiet and his face changed. He hung up the phone. He told me my dad had said it was the wrong number. Then he just said, "Tell him to consider this a closed chapter." Then hung. I didn't really believe it until I heard the ranger try calling again, and my dad just hung up immediately. That time the ranger's face was kind of blank. He asked if there was anyone else he could call. I gave him Marcus' number. My uncle, Dad's older brother Marcus, actually came and got me, but he didn't really know what to say. He was clearly mad at my dad, kept cursing under his breath, and almost slapped the steering wheel at one point. At his home, he let me sit in the living room and watch TV, but mostly he just avoided talking about what happened. I kept thinking maybe my parents would call or Sophie would message me or something. Nothing. I ended up living with Marcus for a while. He wasn't bad, just awkward. He didn't really know what to do with a teenager. I didn't hear from my family at all, not even a text. There's a lot more to the story, but that's how it all started. I never really got an answer, not then anyway. Just that one line from my dad like I was some broken thing they were just done with. I'm not looking for sympathy or whatever. I just needed to write this all out somewhere if you're wondering if I ever saw them again. Not really. For years, I just stood about it honestly. But yeah, about 10 years later, I got my opportunity to set things straight, and for real, I took it. If you want the rest of the story, ask. I'm not holding back anymore. So after that, I lived with my uncle Marcus for a while. He's my dad's brother, and honestly, he tried his best, but he's not exactly the nurturing type you know. He'd buy me stuff and let me play PlayStation in the living room, but had also just disappear for hours at a time or say things like you're old enough to sort out your own dinner. I got used to making instant ramen and eating cereal straight out of the box, man. I got used to being alone pretty fast. What's weird is that no one at school believed me at first. Like, why would your family do that? They kept asking if I was exaggerating or if I'd just run off myself. I had to show the school counselor the official paperwork from the ranger station. Even then, I could tell people were skeptical. Nobody just ditches their kid like that. That's not real life, they'd imply. I eventually stopped trying to explain and just said I live with my uncle. Marcus never really talked about my parents. Whenever I brought them up, he'd just grunt or change the subject. After a while, I stopped asking. But I still hear him on the phone sometimes, arguing with my dad late at night. A couple of times I heard yelling, then a door. Once I heard my name mentioned, and then just silence. I started to wonder if there was some huge, overarching reason for what they did. Like maybe he'd done something so incredibly bad that they just snapped. But I couldn't think of anything. I wasn't some monster kid. I mean, sure, I mouth off sometimes, and I didn't do great in math, but nothing that would warrant being abandoned in the woods. A year passed, then 2 years. Still nothing from them. No birthday cards, no texts, nothing on Facebook. Sometimes I'd check my mom's old page, but she eventually deleted it. Same with Sophie. It was like they had just completely erased me from everything. When I turned 16, Marcus tried to have a serious talk with me. He said my parents had always been under a lot of pressure and that things had gotten complicated after Sophie was born. I asked if he knew specifically why they did it, and he just, "Your dad always had a bit of a temper. Your mom was always tired. You know how it." Which no, I really didn't. Not like that. Then, kind of out of nowhere, Sophie emailed me. It wasn't even from her main account. It was like a burner Gmail address, literally her initials and some random numbers. All it said was, "You should stop trying contact. There's nothing for you here. Just move on." She didn't even sign Ito from your sister. Nothing, I replied, but she had already blocked me. I was furious. Like not even sad at that point. Just pure, unadulterated anger. It's one thing for my parents to do what they did. But Sophie, we were close. Or at least I thought we were. I guess after they left me, she just decided I wasn't her brother anymore. So I started digging. Not like stalking, but I wanted to know if they were even still living in the same city. I found out through a cousin, Chloe, that my parents had moved a couple of years after they abandoned me. New house, new phone numbers. I asked Chloe if she knew why they'd done it, and she just said, they told everyone you'd gone to live with Marcus because you were being difficult, like I was some kind of problem kid. I straight up asked Chloe if she believed that story. She looked away and mumbled that she didn't know. I could tell she was uncomfortable. Her mom, my Aunt Sarah, actually called Marcus and told him I was asking too many questions. Marcus told me to drop it, but I didn't. I started noticing more things. I found out my parents had gone on vacation to Mexico a year after abandoning me. I saw the pictures in a photo album at Aunt Sarah's house. All smiles, Sophie holding a coconut drink. Nobody even mentioned that. I wasn't in a single photo, not even in the background. It was like I genuinely never existed. I started getting angrier like a slow burn. They were just out there living their lives, posting on Facebook about family dinners and being grateful for my blessings, literally acting as if I had never been born. I asked Marcus again if he knew why they hated me. So he finally snapped and said, "Your dad always thought you were too much. He said you made life hard for everyone, that you argued too much, that you reminded him of his own father. He said your parents wanted a fresh start, Liam, and you just didn't fit into that picture." That's when it really hit me. It wasn't about anything specific I had done. It was simply that I wasn't the kid they wanted. I think they genuinely believed that getting rid of me would somehow fix their lie. I was furious at them, at Marcus for not telling me sooner, and at myself forever, even for a second, thinking it might have been my fault. I started to push back it in some dramatic movie kind of way. But I'd decall them, leave messages just to let them know I was still around, that I still existed. My mom blocked my number. My dad changed his voicemail greeting, so it just said, "not accepting messages." At this time, Sophie had blocked me on everything. I started showing up at Aunt Sarah's house more often just to make them uncomfortable when they visited. Once, my dad actually came over for a barbecue and saw me sitting at the table. He turned around and left without a word. Aunt Sarah yelled at me later for ruining the mood. I told her this is my family too. You don't just get to erase me. She slammed the door and told Marcus to control his problem nephew. It just kept building for real. I'd see photos of Sophie with her friends at some college event, and I'd just get angry. She looked happy, like nothing had ever happened. My mom had this whole new circle of friends who would post online about her courage and embracing second chances. It made me sick to my stomach. So yeah, now I knew. My dad got rid of me because he thought I was too. My mom just went along with it. Sophie, I don't even know. Maybe she just picked their side because it was easier for her. If you're reading this and thinking, just move on. Trust me, I try. But when someone rips you out of their life like that and then acts as if you never existed, it gets under your skin in a way that's hard to describe. I didn't want revenge. Not at first. I just wanted answers. But after all this, for real, I wanted them to feel it. For one, I made a promise to myself. I wasn't going to be quiet anymore. I wasn't going to just disappear. Next update. They'll tell you how I decided to make sure they'd never, ever forget me again. Man, it gets messy. For a while, after that last messy confrontation at Aunt Sarah's house, I just went quiet. Everyone around me, what few people knew the real story, told me to move on, get therapy, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, you can't just let someone erase you. Not when they're out there acting like model citizens and you're treated like the freak in the family that nobody talks about. So, yeah, I started planning. Not like sitting there with a notebook and drawing up elaborate sketches or anything, but just keeping tab. I started following what they did. Sophie, social media posts, my mom's old friends from her previous life, even checking obscure alumni pages and distant family reunion announcements. Not stalking, just being. One thing that always stuck out to me was how much my dad cared about his carefully constructed public image, his legacy. He was obsessed with being seen as the quintessential family man, the one who held it all together. After they got rid of me, he just started fresh and pretended their family life had always been perfect. I guess he figured nobody would ever look too closely or question it. So about a year ago, I found this old box of papers at Marcus' house. He was clearing out a closet and just handed it to me like, "These are yours." I don't want them. Mostly it was old report cards, birthday cards, the kind of stuff parents usually keep. But in that box, there was also this stack of documents about my grandparents. actual paperwork about a house they used to own, some kind of family trust. I asked Marcus about it, and he just shrugged, said it was all handled years ago. But it was. I started looking into it, and it turned out that the property and some cash from the trust were supposed to be split among all the grandchildren, which by definition included me. But my parents had never told anyone about me. After they moved and cut me out of their lot, they just told everyone. Sophie was their only child. I had a legal right to that inheritance and everything. That's when I realized I could actually do something. Not just annoy them or make them uncomfortable, but force. Force everyone to acknowledge my existence. To acknowledge what they did. I started small. Every time there was a significant family event I found out about, I'd show up. Not to be polite, just to make it awkward. Sophie's graduation party, for instance. I dropped by. She tried to ignore me. My dad pulled me aside, told me I wasn't welcome there. I told him, not going anywhere. In family, right? He tried to push past me. I didn't move. He actually put his hands on me, tried to shove me. I stood my ground. My mom grabbed my arm. I shook her off. It was a tense next. I started calling up relatives about the trust. I asked Chloe if she had heard anything about it. She said Mom had told her it was all handled. I asked Handle how, especially if nobody even informed me of my share. She got defensive, said it wasn't her problem. I could tell she was irritated. She probably called my mom right away. I filed a formal inquiry with the legal firm that managed the trust. It wasn't hard. I just had to show my ID, copies of my old school documents. Basically proof that I existed and was who I said I was. They had to take it seriously. They informed me they would pause all distributions from the trust while they investigated a potential oversight in identifying all legal beneficiary. Suddenly, nobody could access anything from that trust. Not just my parents, but Aunt Sarah, Chloe, all of them who were potential beneficiaries. Through various family lines, people started calling, texting, asking why I was making trouble. I told them all the same thing. If you want to erase me from the family, maybe don't try to exclude me from what's legally mine as well. Sophie sent me a wall of angry texts, all along the lines of, why are you doing this? You're ruining everything. You're being so self. I told her you all got to have a family and your inheritance and pretend I was dead. Now you get to deal with reality. My dad tried to call Marcus, told him to get me under control. Marcus, to his credit, told him to handle his own mess. My mom left me a voicemail, her voice all shaky and emotional, saying, "This isn't fair, Liam. You don't know what you're doing. You're hurting people." I deleted it. It wasn't just about the money, though. I started reaching out to institutions, Sophie's college specifically. She had gotten this scholarship based on family hardship or something similar. And I knew from Chloe that she had written an essay about her journey and experiences as an only child. I sent the scholarship board a factual letter, attached a copy of my birth certificate, stated clearly that I was her sibling, alive and well, and that our family had chosen to exclude me for personal reasons many years ago. I didn't lie or exaggerate. I just stated the verifiable facts. I received a reply stating that they were reviewing her scholarship eligibility based on new information. Sophie, I heard later, was extremely upset, telling people I was lying and trying to sabotage her at the same time. I went through old family photo albums that Marcus still had, made copies of pictures that clearly included me from my childhood, and sent them anonymously to anyone who still regularly communicated with my parents. Just dropped them in the mail. No return address. Suddenly, people started asking uncomfortable questions at their church, at their neighborhood events, even at my mom's book club. I'd hear about it, directly from Chloe or Aunt Sarah, who would then call Marcus and complain that I was ruining the family's reputation. I didn't particularly care about their definition of reputation at that point. I wanted the truth of my existence to be undeniable. I wanted them to have to answer for what they did every single day. My dad actually showed up at Marcus' front door one night, yelling, demanding I come out and face him like a man. Marcus told him to get off his property. Dad started trying to push past Marcus. Marcus pushed him. My mom tried to calm everyone down, but ended up getting her hand accidentally slammed in the door during the commotion. I didn't go outside. I sat in the kitchen and listened to them argue like children, and for once I didn't feel like I was the problem. The issue with the trust dragged on for months. My parents tried to contest my claim, arguing that I was estranged and therefore shouldn't count as a beneficiary. It didn't work. The lawyers informed them that unless they could legally prove I was deceased, I was entitled to my SHT. They couldn't prove anything except that they didn't want me. The most impactful part for me was ensuring that everyone in their world knew the truth, not through online drama or public accusations, but through simple, undeniable facts and official paperwork. I made them answer for what they did. I'm not done. There's another step in this process of seeking accountability, and trust me, it's the one that will truly ensure the truth is fully acknowledged. That's coming up next. Hey, race the last piece of Not Gonna Lie. This is the development that seemed to impact them the most significantly, and I stand by my actions. You can think what you want, but if you've read the rest of this, you know I didn't get to this point by accident or for no reason. This is what happens when people decide you're disposable and you decide you are not. It started with a rather official-looking envelope in the mail. Plain, no unusual markings, not even a return address. I almost tossed it thinking it was junk mail, but it had that expensive textured paper feel. I initially thought it was some kind of high-end credit card promotion, but inside was a letter from a law firm. It wasn't even addressed with a Mr. or anything, just my name right there in the middle of it stated in very formal legal terms that I had a right to claim my portion of the family trust, and that since my name was on the original founding documents, I could compel a full review of its administration and distribution. ID already initiated the process with the trust administrators, but this was different. This was an official legal notification, and they had served it to every adult member of the extended family at their legal addresses. Not just my parents, but Aunt Sarah, Chloe, Marcus, and even Sophie, who I guess counted as an adult by then. It basically forced every single one of them to formally acknowledge my existence, spelled out exactly how I had been improperly excluded, and called for a formal family hearing regarding the matter. I didn't even have to do anything particularly dramatic myself. The legal system, once set in motion with the correct information, did the rest, so about a week ago, these letters hit everyone's mailbox. I didn't post anything online, didn't send any texts. I just waited. I woke up the next morning to my phone absolutely blowing. Not just a couple of calls. 63. I counted them. Half of them were from Sophie, a whole bunch from Aunt Sarah. Even Marcus tried calling, but his message just said to call him back when I was done with all this drama. I didn't answer any of the call. I just watched as the voicemails stacked up one after another. I got texts from numbers I didn't even recognize. All of them were either angry or desperate or a combination of both. Sophie sent me a series of voice notes. The first one was all, "What in the world did you're ruining our life? Dad is losing it." In another one, she was clearly crying, saying, "Mom is making herself sick over this." Dad was incredibly distressed after reading that letter. He was really unwell. "You win, okay? Just stop." I listened to the rest. Some were just her breathing heavily, clearly overwhelmed. Some were full on screaming rants. Then Chloe called. She said I was blowing up the family for no good reason and that I could have just asked for what I want. I told her I had asked repeatedly and everyone had ignored me or dismissed me. She said, "This isn't the way to handle things. You're making us all look like monsters." I replied, "You managed to do that yourselves long before I sent any letters." Then my dad finally called. His voicemail message was just silence for about 10 long seconds. Then he said, his voice barely a whisper, You've disrupted everything. Is that what you wanted?" I deleted. Aunt Sarah texted me, said she was getting calls from people at her church, from her neighbors, even from members of her book club. People were asking why nobody had ever mentioned me, why there was a whole missing kid in the family, wondering if something terrible had happened to me that was covered up. She said she was tired of cleaning up my messes. I told her they weren't my messes to begin with. The fallout was bigger than I had anticipated. The truth, it turned out, had its own way of settling accounts. The process was far from over, but for the first time in a very long time, I wasn't the only one carrying the weight of their decision.